All right, call this meeting to order at whatever time, 5:03. With all members in attendance. Who are our guests?
Ari, are you there?
I am here. I'm Ari Trolin. I live in North Hudson, and I'm here regarding the dust issue on Crafty Road.
Okay. Then we have a couple other people, Corey Scheidler and Chris Dressler.
Yes, I'm Corey Scheidler with Cedar Corporation,
Okay.
architect working on your public works assessment. And then we have Chris Dressler, another architect with Cedar Corporation that's also working on that with us.
Awesome. Okay, now I'll see if I can get the agenda where I can read it. Well, then the first item is the minutes from the September 14th meeting. Any comments from any of you folks?
I would move to approve.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved to approve the minutes from September 14th, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. The next item is the presentation on the Public Works Facilities Assessment.
Yeah, so you've introduced, or Corey and Chris introduced themselves. They're from Cedar Corp out of Menominee, and they are doing our Public Works Facility Assessment. So they are in the process of kind of doing the initial walkthrough, site development, so on and so forth. And they're probably 3/4 of the way through the process. And they wanted to present to the Public Works Committee the work that they've done up to this point, share with you their initial renderings, some of the things that they've found at our existing facilities, then answer any questions that you may have that they can address moving forward over the next couple, 2-3 weeks. The ultimate goal is to package something together and present it to City Council for further consideration in the future, just to let them know this is where we're at, this is where we want to be in the future, and kind of give a timeline to get from point A to point Z. So with that being said, Corey and Chris, the floor is yours.
Well, thanks for having us. We started this process back in, it might have been back in May, Mike. And then, things got a little bit messed up here with COVID and everything, but we're on track to get this wrapped up for budgeting purposes and presenting to the council. So with that, we've a couple things just to point out. We've toured all the facilities and done an assessment of all the facilities, looked at inventory of equipment, looked at the inventory. We've met with staff. We had a great morning meeting with the staff and covered a lot of different topics. So with that, I will let Chris talk a little bit more about the specifics of your existing facilities, the deficiencies that we found, some of the safety concerns that a new facility would address, and then get into a little bit more about some of your current facilities, how they can be reused, and what a new facility could look like for the city.
Chris, just before you begin, just make the committee aware, Cedar Corp is a local company, right? And this is one of their specialties that they do is facility assessments. They are actually in the process of wrapping up a public works facility upgrade in Menominee itself, and have done some others in the area. So, this is kind of what they do. And so just to give you a little bit of backdrop, they have a lot of experience in doing these types of facilities. So sorry, Chris, take it away.
I'd like to piggyback on that, Mike, just so we are, as Mike had mentioned, we are in Menominee. We have offices around the state, but we've been here since the mid-'70s, 45 years. And, municipal engineering and architecture is what we specialize in. Chris and I have been working together for nearly the last 8 years, working on facilities such as this, some larger, some smaller. We do a lot of facility assessments and help with budgeting and planning so communities can get to an eventual facility as the fiscal budget allows. So Chris.
All right. So we went through and we looked at the main shop on the 2nd Street site. And we started by looking at the site and how the site will function, or how the site is functioning for the public works right now. And with the location of it being up on that hill and everything, so basically they have to drive up a steep driveway and then kind of make a button hook turn into their site, and when they do that, the salt storage building is right there on the corner, creating a blind spot for the drivers coming in and out of the site. And this creates a safety issue for everybody on the site and coming in and out of the site. And furthermore, they've got a fuel pumping station there right next to the excuse me, right next to the salt storage building, which other city vehicles are utilizing. And I happened to be there when one of the fire trucks came up there to fuel up, and they had to do, I think, a 20-point turn in order to get lined up on the fuel pumping station. So it's definitely a tight space, and with the vehicles that are required to do the work that the Public Works does, it's just too tight to make those maneuvers anymore. And then we kind of looked into the building, looking at the building envelope, that being the energy efficiency of it. It's a single life block wall with limited insulation. So it's not a very energy efficient building. It's a very durable building, but just not as efficient as what code allows today. And then furthermore, the roof is actually holding water right now because the insulation has started to degrade, and directing water away from the roof drains, which is adding additional load to the building, which isn't typically accounted for in the design of the structure. So it's definitely a concern. It can be monitored in the time being, making sure that that the drains are clear and water is getting to the drains. Just a little bit of monitoring there at this point.
Yes. So Chris, just for a point of reference, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim and the rest of the committee, we walked through that facility, gosh, has it been almost a year and a half? It wasn't this summer, but last summer, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong. We all toured that facility, correct?
You mean the Public Works?
The Public Works Committee. We went up to that. We went out to all the garages, correct? Yeah. Okay. So they kind of have an understanding of kind of the layouts and stuff, Chris.
Okay. I won't dwell on that too much. So then you obviously know that the size of the building, it requires them to double stack the equipment, and multiple vehicles getting moved in and out, and in order to get other equipment, and just creates a little bit of safety hazard there. And also there's some exits out of the building that don't meet the current ADA requirements. So that would be a code deficiency there, as well as the restroom facilities don't meet the current ADA standard. For the most part, the mechanical system in this building has been updated. You guys are using waste oil furnaces, which do require a large amount of maintenance in order to keep them working correctly. And many people looked at those as a really good money saver, but over time learned that they don't quite save as much as what they anticipated. And with most people not dropping off the waste oil on the site anymore, that is depleting the amount of waste oil that the Public Works has to utilize these furnaces, and causing them to have to use the gas more anyways. And then the only other thing I wanted to make note on this is this building has no backup generator for emergency power. So in a time of natural disaster, most likely power is going to be out, and the Public Works still needs to operate and address the natural disaster in the city limits. So just some few things to keep in mind on that. And then at the west side on 2nd Street, that site is mainly just used for seasonal storage. There is a spot in there for traffic control and street light repair and maintenance shop in there. But right now that space does not have functioning restroom for a shop. Typically you want to have functioning restroom for your staff to be able to use. And then that building is also that building is a pre-engineered metal building, which is a good structure, but at this age that it's in, it's definitely getting to its end of its life expectancy. Excuse me.
This building, too, just to kind of remind everybody, I mean, some of you, I'm not sure how long you've been on the committee, but this building wasn't originally built as a public works facility. So it's been repurposed. It's served its useful life, and we're at the point now where it's time to move on. If you get a moment, just pop open Google Earth or another app that shows aerial views, and just take a look at the roof on this building, and take a look at the other public works building up by the lake there, and you can see the kind of condition these things are in. It's time for either maintenance or another alternative. And we start looking at these aged buildings. We start to ask ourselves the question of, how much money do we want to invest in these facilities to carry you through into the future when they don't meet the current needs. The buildings over the years have become functionally obsolete. There's several deficiencies in both of them. And what Chris and I had found in looking at both the site as well as the buildings, we have limited opportunity on either of these sites to resolve the immediate problems, and that resolves around safety and functionality. One of the primary aspects we're looking at when we're designing public facilities and streets and utility shops is we want to have adequate amenities and proper amenities for the staff. So, things like an adequate break room that's separated from the shop and the garage space, and opportunities to reduce contamination or mitigate any contamination into those spaces, proper showers and locker rooms. All these things turn into liabilities in today's day and age. So our goal is to try to minimize any issue in a renovation. And quite frankly, in both of these buildings, we don't have the opportunity to make those improvements. The other facility is much better, and I'll let Chris talk a little bit about that one.
Yeah, so the site on Ward Avenue, right next to the fire station, obviously you guys know that it currently the Parks Department is utilizing that space for their offices and equipment storage, and that function that space excuse me, that space functions well for the Parks Department, providing ample enough space for equipment storage and movement within the building of that equipment, and ample office space for excuse me, ample office space for all the staff there.
When we first toured that building, I felt like it was maybe not the most efficient building for municipal facilities, but after thinking about it a little bit more and looking at the location, how the building's used, it's a great facility. There are some improvements and opportunities for improvement that could possibly increase the efficiency, but there's adequate space that I don't believe it's necessary at this point. Things like, maybe another door here or there, reconfiguration of the office and locker rooms could make it a better utilized space. But all in all, it does work really well. Some more property would be great there because we don't have a lot of room for stockpiles and storing materials outside. But it's kind of part of that municipal campus. We have the parks garage, and then we have the garage that's utilized by the police for storage, and then your new fire station. So the use fits. It's a great location for it. So that facility is serving the city very well. So that still doesn't solve the problem on our 2 Second Street site. So Chris, do you have your drawing you can pull up for the new facility?
I'm not sure if I can share my.
So while Chris is doing that, you should be able to screen share, Chris.
Yeah. Okay.
So, as far as, new sites, when we're looking at new facilities for the Public Works Department in the future, City of Hudson, if you really think about it, a lot of the commercial industrial sites are already spoken for, are already built on, right? There's one site that comes to our mind, and this is the one that you see in front of you right now, and this is right off of Hanley Road and O'Neill Road on the southwest corner in the industrial park. Because I know we talked about internally with Cedar Corp about trying to utilize either one of the two sites that are off of 2nd Street up on the north end of town. And unfortunately, with the size of the department and the need for stockpiling, material on site, salt storage, so on and so forth, the acreage, just the general acreage isn't there, which lends itself to the facility. So, we looked at, maybe some existing commercial possibility of kind of reconstructing something that's for sale. But if we're looking strictly at a new facility, this is pretty much the only parcel in town that would lend itself to the size of facility that we're looking at with the amenities that we're looking at. So just wanted to let you know. Now, obviously, if we annex in certainly we can look at something like that. But, when we look at efficiencies, we try to get as close to, the center of town, and there's really nothing in the center of town. And so this is kind of the next best option. So just wanted to throw that out there.
And Chris and I drove around a bit too, and there's really nothing out there. And kind of interesting, a few years back, I worked with, as a couple of years ago, we continue to work with this client, but they've expressed concern too because there's just nowhere for them to expand in Hudson. they see a big, I think there's a big need for industrial growth and expansion. So that might be something else the city wants to consider as a sidebar. So,
Yes. So on the Hanley Road site, as Mike kind of alluded to before, basically between the two Second Street sites, the Public Works Department occupies about 3.3 acres right now, and realistically, what we've been seeing and the way that we kind of calc out the space needs and everything, for a community of Hudson size, you really wouldn't want to be anywhere less than 6 acres for a public work site, for the stockpiling materials, having a salt storage shed, and, kind of getting ahead of the game on DNR and making sure that the salt storage the salt is being loaded within the salt storage building to try and contain that salt a little bit more, because that's something that's coming down the road. We've seen it in adjacent states, and it seems to be a popular thing. Excuse me. But basically, kind of what you see here is just a conceptual layout, figuring the majority of traffic. We don't want to clog up Hanley Road too much, as that seems to be a pretty main thoroughway through there. So looking at access off of O'Neill Road, kind of being the main access point, with more of an office entrance off of Hanley. And then having the office and staff support areas off of that northeast corner there. And based on, the space needs that we're kind of figuring for your guys' new facility would be about 5,000 square feet of office space and support staff. So that's including our staff support areas. That's including break room, conference rooms, training, lockers, showers, offices, reception, kind of everything, to the front office to the workers going through and going out in the streets. And then off to the west side of the office, we've got the large area, which would be the truck and equipment storage space. This would provide room for about I believe about 24 of their large vehicles, which would provide them a little bit of space for future. As well as about 16 pickup spaces, which would provide them enough for now and into the future as well. And then on the southeast corner there, we've got a trailer storage area. Just knowing how it can be difficult to maneuver the trailers and everything. We find that many public works facilities like to have a drive-through access to those where they can just park those straight in there versus trying to work them into an angled parking spot.
Hey, Chris,
yes.
Can you bring up the actual building detail when you're walking through it? There you go.
There we go. Yeah, so this kind of shows the pickup stalls, these smaller stalls. And then these larger stalls would be, the larger truck and equipment. And then, like I was saying, the trailer storage, this allows about 4 truck and trailer to come in and park along the sides here. This allows for a little bit easier flow and function through the space and makes it a little bit safer. We all, excuse me. We also included a loading dock, which many facilities are going to adding loading docks just because of the safety of trying to get large material and equipment off of trucks. Creates a little bit of a safety issue if you don't have the proper equipment.
So much is being delivered by semi-trailers now, and you end up hooking it. Someone jumps in and you pull the pallet back with a strap, and so it's becoming more and more common somewhere within the community, be it public works or offsite, that you have a dock. So, and this floor plan is by no means this exact solution to the city's problem. However, it does offer a glimpse at how much space is necessary and what can be done, in the future. I mean, other communities are doing all of the municipal vehicles or municipal fleet maintenance now. So that's something that the city can consider moving forward too.
Yeah, so we looked at providing 3 stalls for maintenance, in the event that the public works were to take on the maintenance of the remainder of the city's fleet. They have ample space to accommodate that.
Another significant change from the yesteryears of public works facilities is having an internal wash bay, not just somewhere to rinse the trucks off, but this offers an underbody flush and opportunity to gain access through a catwalk to the side of the truck and up above, or even an automatic wash. Some automatic washes systems on the large trucks work well, some do not. So that would need some consideration. But another significant change is, over the years, it used to just be that, the business part of the public works department was conducted in the corner of the shop or in the break room. Nowadays, we're having to provide more office space. There's more resources. There's more reporting. A lot more documentation has to be maintained, so the staffing requirements have increased dramatically. And then I also mentioned about having the proper facilities and amenities for staff. So locker room space for training, space for a proper break room. And some of these folks may be coming in, and if you have somebody from out of the area, they may be spending a half or more of their day during a winter storm event within the facility. So we want to make sure we have the proper facilities for them. So, Chris, right now I believe the current public works up on 2nd Street are both combined around 22,000 square feet.
That's about 20,500.
2,500, okay. Dramatic increase, but this is going to address, equipment that is not properly, when I say not properly stored, either stored outside in cold storage or doesn't have adequate space. I mean, these guys are very creative and do a very good job about getting the equipment into the facility. But with that comes safety concerns as well. So with this layout, this would provide ample storage for all that equipment.
Yeah, I will say that the Mike and Kevin and those guys keep a very, very clean shop, and I don't think they would be able to function the way that they do if they weren't able to keep the shop as clean as they do.
So obviously, I just want to touch on a couple different things while we kind of wrap this up. But when we're looking at this facility, first and foremost, this isn't going to happen next year or the year after. This is a process, right? And this is the first step in that process. It's probably going to take several years for this to come to fruition. So first thing is to do the needs assessment and see what the community needs, not only now, but in the future, because when this thing gets built, it's a 75-year building to 100-year building, right? This is something that the city's going to have to live with for a really long time. So we want to make sure that we have the ample space and room for as we continue to grow. So that's kind of why the layout is what it is. So the other thing too is, like I said, with the process, obviously, we're talking about the CIP, one of the next 2 council meetings for the next couple of years. So nothing is going to happen over the next couple of years in regards to this facility, but maybe we can start having the conversations with our next CIP cycle, or maybe some special notes about at least securing a piece of property within the city that we can build a future facility on. And then we can start having those conversations long term with the council and finance and Aaron, as far as what's realistic and what's feasible, right, for the community. Obviously, we just built that brand new fire station, and that's a big part of it. We can't sandwich 2 facilities right back to back. So it is going to be a process, and I know that, and the public works staff knows that, but at least to kind of keep the ball moving forward so that there is some light at the end of the tunnel, where we aren't just constantly, operating with these deficiencies that we currently have, and just so that the staff knows and community knows that we're pushing the ball forward to get this thing built, over the next 5 to 10 years.
Just for clarification, I assume this space planning leaves the parks facilities and resources over where they are on Ward Avenue?
Yeah,
Yeah, you're correct, Jim.
Okay.
The other thing, as we continue to go through this, if we'll be addressing any comments and concerns that the committee has or staff have. While a new facility does cost a great deal of money, there are some offsets to a project such as this. So you would have your 2 Second Street sites, which could be sold, repurposed, and help offset some of the cost of land purchase and new construction. So that all has to be fit into that master plan, and what part of our report will identify implementation plan so you can move that forward.
Do you have a sense of timing on when that piece of it will be done? I guess that's when the total report is done?
That'll be done for your November meeting.
Oh, awesome.
Well, I want to say just a couple comments. I think this is long overdue, so I'm excited to get, to keep this process going. I think with our current arrangement, we have so many inefficiencies that, when we're talking about getting it approved, those inefficiencies cost a lot of money and manpower. And I don't know how to put a total dollar on that, but I think it's definitely something that we as a committee and then as a council need to consider just the savings that we're going to gain from the gain of efficiencies within the department's work. I wondered, I don't think I heard you talk about the Buckeye facility. What was that included in the numbers? You said we have about 20,500 square feet. Does that include Buckeye? And are we going to be looking to include Buckeye in the list of buildings that we can get rid of?
So up to this point, Sarah, we did not include Buckeye. Pretty much all operations are out of Buckeye at this time. We only utilize it for some cold storage or some repair picnic tables in the summer and winter months. But we can certainly utilize that calculation as far as square footage is what we have used in the past. But that would free up that space. Absolutely, we would move everything out of there and not use it anymore.
I guess the one other question I would ask would be, and Mike, knowing your style, would expect that this has happened, is that the crews, the people that are doing the work, have had input or will have input into this or review maybe before we see it. before the council sees it. I think that's
Yeah.
the same kind of session with them.
Yeah, so we did have a listening session, probably, gosh, it's probably been about 4 weeks now, where we met down at the old fire hall. All the public works staff was in attendance, and Chris and Corey came over, and they kind of showed pretty much the same layout. They tweaked it a little bit based upon their comments, but they did show them a kind of a general layout of the building, and everyone had a chance to convey, some of their concerns and just raise some good questions and good points, which obviously Corey and Chris took to heart, because they changed some of the dimensions. A lot of it, a lot of the topic of conversation was about workspace, just the general size of the workspace, being able to fit in traffic signals, street light signals. I mean, you need a lot of space when you're hauling in a 40-foot tall street light into the shop to be able to do work around it. Just the height of the ceilings, workspaces for the guys, like Corey alluded to earlier. Everything is going digital now, so all of our Whistler recording, all of our stormwater recording, GIS with the stormwater and the trees. I mean, right now we got 11 guys trying to share one computer, and that's not functional. So to give these guys some workstations where they can have a spot where they can go and do their paperwork online and submit it to either myself or the state or the respective agency. So I mean, these are all things that were brought up in that meeting, and that Corey and Chris took to heart in this kind of design that you have all in front of you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's going to be important to talk about what the changes in our operation are going to be. How we'll be more effective.
It's huge. I mean, you have proper facilities for it's any job, but specifically with like public works and fire, I see it a lot. But these individuals have an old station, an old shop, and they got new equipment. Well, at the end of the day, you represent where you work, and it just kind of sets your mood and your mindset as you go throughout your day. So having a new facility that's clean, well maintained, has the proper amenities. So when they want to work on a plow truck, they have the equipment to do it, and they have the room for the safety equipment to properly block things, and they can raise a truck box up in the shop and put the safety arms in place. They have the proper lifts for the truck. I mean, all this stuff, fume hoods, rather than having a corner of a shop where we have an exhaust fan that was kind of fabricated in. It works, but we want to put the proper solutions in place so they use them. And through Mike and staff, they have procedures. So if they are doing some welding or cutting or grinding, they're using that equipment, and it's going to create a safer work environment, less issues and less liability for the city, increased staff efficiency. Even if you think about a 20% efficiency increase in staff utilization, that's incredible. And if you were in a private business world, if you could get 10% in increase in efficiency, you'd be jumping for joy. So I think there's a lot of good that can come out of this.
Yeah, to not have to move 3 pieces of equipment to get to another piece is just that in and itself saves an hour worth of time trying to hook up a trailer to get a skid steer out of the shop. So those are the things that I look forward to, just having the equipment at the ready. Get your job, you hop in a piece of equipment, you're out the shop, 5 minutes, you're gone. So, I mean, and then not having to drive all the way on the north end of town and deal with downtown stop traffic lights. And, right now, if you've got a job out in Red Cedar Canyon, it takes a half an hour just to get out there. So, I mean, just stuff like that is just going to save, like Sarah said, just so much time and increase the efficiency so much of the Public Works Department. So
you'll see at least 10 to 20% increase in efficiency or utilization.
I just want to thank you for your work, gentlemen, and to say to Mike as well, your predecessor talked to me about all these deficiencies when I first took office, so I'm well aware of them. And I'm supportive of trying to get you all into a better facility in the future. Just a quick question, is that strip of land on Hanley and O'Neill, is that one that we would need to acquire, or who owns that currently?
It's the I forget the name of it, Mike.
the St. Croix County Business Park owns it, so the city would have to acquire it from the park.
So it seems like step one to me is just trying to figure out how to do that before we even get into a lot of the other stuff, right? Just try to figure out if we could get that land set aside as step one or something within the next year or something.
Yeah, we'll lay out the next steps in our report and everything. So it'll kind of help guide everybody into what needs to happen next.
Can I ask a question? Given our unknown COVID environment, with these office spaces, are those cubicles, or what is the intention in that lower right-hand corner?
I would foresee most of that. Well, in the lower right corner would be offices. We always try to introduce some cubicles, but they're coming out. They've had it, and it's being more widely utilized, but higher partitions for those type of spaces. I think as designers, we've had to kind of come to the realization that we're going to have to look at more flexible office environments and workspaces. So there are manufacturers that are responding to that, and then we as designers are also responding to that with fixed construction, but more flexible fixed construction.
Okay. I just think it's important we keep that in mind as we proceed, that we don't know what what office space is going to look like. And if we say 5 years that this is going to get undertaken, where are we at with, global pandemics and things like that? Just going to have to think of it.
It's crazy. We got to think of that nowadays.
I know, but I think they're saying we need to plan for it and be ready. So.
For sure.
All right. Then does the committee have any other questions for Chris or Corey before they
No, thank you
off?
guys. It's great. It's good to see this moving.
And
Great.
am I right?
So, yeah.
Something for the November meeting, a more formal report or something?
Correct. So we'll have a formal report and then a summary memo outlining that report. So the report, I hate to say it, but most cities, those reports get kind of filed in the back room, so to speak. So we prepare a summary memo that does oftentimes get read by council members and others. So that'll have the Cliff Note version of the report, but there will be a lot of documentation accompanying that summary memo.
Thank you.
All right. The next item is comments and suggestions from citizens present. And I guess we'll use the same criteria as the council meetings. If it's not on the agenda, we'll talk. We can talk about it. Is there anybody there? All right, moving on. First item of business, discussion on alternate methods of treatment. And I just lost my, this is a great, technology is great when you don't hit the button wrong. But anyhow, we're going to talk about Crafty Lane, right? That's what that is?
Yep. North Hudson, yeah.
My little iPad just lost its screen.
Yeah, so it's discussion on alternate methods of treatment to reduce the amount of dust at the city landfill located off Crafty Lane, Village of North Hudson.
Thank you, Mike.
Yep, no problem. And so this is a topic of discussion that we've had. I believe it was last summer. It came forth to the Public Works Committee. So currently, the city applies calcium chloride to Crafty Lane, which is the old landfill site, and we hire the county, and they apply 3 treatments of calcium chloride, one kind in the spring, summer, and then early fall. Is it the best treatment? No. I mean, there's other alternate methods that would reduce the dust completely, which would be, permanent pavement or something like that. But there's still some dust and some nuisances that are occurring there. And Ari Trollin is with us tonight, and she lives directly adjacent to that road. And she's expressed to the city, and I'm sure the Village of North Hudson on GovClum over the past few years about things that are going on out there. And she just wanted to bring it forward again to try and get more of a permanent solution to the issues that are going on out there, primarily just all the dust that's happening. Before I let her kind of take the floor, I just wanted to say that I did reach out to the Village of North Hudson and inquired about an alternate entrance kind of on that southern end of the property off of one of their municipal roads into the Rod and Gun Club. And they had reached out to the Rod and Gun Club members or board, and there really wasn't a lot of support to put an alternate entrance there. That doesn't mean that it's dead in the water, but just want to let the committee know that those initial conversations I did have, and there really wasn't much support for that. So with that being said, Ari had sent off a letter. The committee was able to read that. It was kind of sent out around 8:34 o'clock. Just kind of summarizing what's happening out there and her concerns. Ari, if you want to add anything to that, feel free to do so.
Thank you. Yes, when you talk about dust, it sounds like it's just an inconvenience. And when we first moved here 5 years ago, I thought that's all it was. I thought, oh boy, we're going to have dirty cars most of the time. It's gone far beyond that now. There is so much more activity at the gun club now. There's about 2 years ago, they told us there was more than 800 cars a week over this road, which is a lot of traffic because it's not all little cars and they're not always going 10 miles an hour. They come out of here squealing tires, and we have big trucks. And when they're doing a construction project, lots and lots of dump trucks. And every week there's beer trucks and trash haulers and motorhomes with the police officers that come in and out, and buses that come in with the school kids. Not this year with COVID, of course. But there's a lot of traffic on this road, and I want to put it forth that I am not anti-gun club, not at all. We are gun fans. What I am not a fan of is all the respiratory issues we're starting to have. It's not just dust, it's clouds of dust. And I sent a video that wouldn't go through, but the dust hangs on the air or in the air for a very long time. And we can't have windows open, we can't sit outside. The picture that I sent you of our pickup, we washed our pickup on Wednesday, and on Friday morning, that was the dust on it. We washed it Wednesday night when we got home from work. And Thursday is a big league shooting day. By Friday morning, it's coated in dust. There's a slash across the windshield that shows where the glass actually is without dust on it. And there's a tiny little video that shows the dust on the side of our siding. That's the one that has the garbage can. This dirt is a health hazard. It's etching the steel roof of our house. It's not a nuisance. It is a problem. And the calcium chloride's great until a big truck drives over it, or until we get a heavy rain, or until somebody with some nice big tires decides to smoke them right outside our house, which they seem to do a lot, and I don't know why, but maybe they're just leaving the gun club property, and kids will be kids, I guess. But it's an issue. It's not just an inconvenience. We can't sit outside. We can't have open windows. It's a health hazard. Our neighbors they've got a baby, and they don't open their windows anymore now because of that. This is an issue. And I know that it's not I won't say it's not well utilized. It's a hugely utilized road. And I know that the city doesn't have a huge stake in what goes on back here. You guys, maintain the dump, and unfortunately, it's your road, and it's our health, and it's the health of everybody along this road. If you would turn into this road on a Thursday night, the dust hangs heavy over this entire cul-de-sac. Once you turn off Summers Street, it's a fog of dust. And this is what we live with day in and day out. That's not a seasonal problem. And I wish there were an easier answer for it. I don't know what calcium chloride applications cost. Mike, can you address that? It would be interesting to know that.
Yeah, they cost, each application is roughly $1,200.
Okay. Well, it's kind of interesting because I was talking to the St. Croix County takes care of a lot of crushed asphalt or recycled asphalt for other municipalities. And I was talking to a gentleman who said that 2 inches of crushed asphalt is between $18,000 and $20,000 a mile. That makes this roughly, if we would put that on from where the blacktop ends past the ball fields to the gun club gate. That's between a quarter and a third of a mile. That would be between $6,000 and $7,000. That would seem to me to be a more permanent solution than a $1,200 or than a $3,600 per year application that may or may not last past the next heavy rain.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. I mean, I would be open to, and Dean, you might be able to chime in on this, but some sort of 1.5 or 2 inch of millings, and then we could maybe add a fog seal over the top of it to lock it in, up to our property line on the south side of the line. I mean, that would be an option that we could, perform moving forward to help alleviate some of the dust issues.
Yeah, I'll just chime in for a second. I didn't prepare anything for this, so I'm kind of trying to see if I can answer. Sorry. No, it's okay. There are different types of things you could do short of paving, like a regular street would be kind of thing. There's some rural areas I know in Minnesota that they essentially do like a double seal coat over the top of gravel, and it kind of holds up as if it were like asphalt pavement. It has a lower lifespan than your typical street would, but it's a lot cheaper to do than paving it. And like there are other alternatives for like bringing in recycled asphalt. Essentially looks like gravel, but it's less dusty because it's kind of coated in oil, kind of because it came off of a street. So there's options for that. It'd be easiest for that if we had a project going on that, we were milling up or reclaiming a street, so we could just haul it right over there and spread it out, and great, that even keeps the cost down. But I don't think we have a project coming up soon enough to make that happen as cheaply as it possibly could. But it's not to say we can't haul it in from somewhere else and whatnot. But yeah, there are other options other than regular old paving the area into. So something we could consider if we move forward with that.
My concern too is the kids at the ball field. We sit here and we can be in our house, and even though it's dusty and we can't sit outside, those kids are there week after week playing ball in that dirt. I wish the video that I wouldn't send, I don't know why, but it just shows it hanging, and it's everywhere. And you guys don't know what it's like to live here and not be able to use the outside of your house, or to be able to walk your dog along that road because it's a choking experience. And thank you for considering this and taking it seriously, because it's an issue. And I'm sorry that the gun club wasn't receptive to a shorter road that wouldn't be quite so dusty, and I don't know what their objection could possibly be to that, but that would be a great solution, especially if it were a paved road into that.
Yeah, so I guess unless the committee has other suggestions or questions, I think what we can do is, between Dean and I, we can come up with, different options and the cost associated with those options, whether it's paving versus millings versus a seal coat, and bring those back to a future Public Works Committee meeting for inclusion in our, whether it's next year or the year after, our street maintenance program. I'm just trying to spitball a seal coat on probably that stretch of road. Would that be, Dean, $6,000 to $8,000 for a seal coat?
Yeah, for the double seal coat, yeah, they're probably in the ballpark anyway.
Yeah, so I mean,
Is it number?
$6,000 to $8,000 for a double seal coat.
So are we talking, I'm sorry to go back, step back a little bit, but are we talking about the part of the road that is in the ballpark, or are we talking about the part that's on the Rod and Gun Club property? or both?
I think the whole stretch, but we can only control what's on our property because it's a private road, and our jurisdiction stops at our southern property line.
I kind of feel as though, we need to talk with the people who own that property as well. I mean, we can't just solve the stretch of road that goes through the ballpark area. I mean, the problem will still remain. Or am I wrong? Am I missing something?
Yeah, well, I mean, Ari, if we do our portion of the road, I mean, there's still going to be some residual dust that's being kicked up from the Rod and Gun Club property. I would venture to assume that, right?
Yes, that is a very dusty road, and from the gate on in, it's extremely dusty. I'm surprised they haven't had more complaints than they do. Mm-hmm. But even getting this done out here would be wonderful. There was some talk. We talked with Gary Zappa a couple years ago, and he was talking about some kind of maybe cooperative effort in being able to do a larger project and have the gun club in on it, and maybe the booster club past the fields, and the city on your portion of the road. And I don't know whatever happened to that. Everybody's busy, things get lost in the shuffle, but that would seem to be a more complete and comprehensive solution to this ongoing problem. Mm-hmm. And I don't know who would take care of that. That's another thing, because you're involving so many entities. I'm sure it would be, a little bit of a coordination nightmare, but I think it could be done.
I guess in my opinion, I don't like to do things halfway, I mean, when we do things halfway, we just seem to kick problems down into the future and make somebody else handle them. So, yeah, I think it would be great if we could bring some of the interested parties, the boosters and the gun club together. But has that been attempted and not succeeded, or does anyone know the history?
No, I mean, since I've been here, I've when this initially came up last year, I reached out to Ron Gun Club just to explain, the problems that are happening out there, and really didn't get that much of a response. And then I reached out, like I said, with the alternate entrance, and didn't get much of a response from that either. But I can certainly, we can only control, but I can certainly reach out to him again and say, this is what we're doing,
I guess I would rather that the reach out came from a higher level.
Okay.
This comes to the council, and we make a recommendation to say, here's what we'd like to do. Here are the three alternatives for treating the road up to our part that we want. And the fourth alternative is to put the entrance in at the other end. But that we want the city to officially tell North Hudson, we got to work on this. This is an issue that we need to jointly resolve, and have it come from the city as opposed from the council or from the mayor, as opposed to just from you being able to reach out to him, Mike. That's not working for you.
Yeah, you're right.
And I hate to see you put you back in that spot anymore. It's inappropriate. We need to raise the level. We know that from dealing with North Hudson, we have to do that.
I agree, Jim, and I think that we're talking about North Hudson residents, right? So it seems like the village board should be involved in those conversations and take an interest in those conversations.
Yeah, we at least have to push the issue to their village board, making an official on the agenda item, where we make a presentation, say, here are the issues, how can we resolve this? Some of the pictures, the video, if it could work, would be great. But I think obviously we have to raise the level of this. So yeah, that would be my recommendation, or my thoughts is that we would go ahead and figure out what it is we need to do, or the options, the best options that we can see, or all the options that we can see, and say, okay, let's talk about each one of these and figure out how we're going to do that.
So do you want to bring those options back to next month's Public Works Committee for you to make a formal recommendation to the council?
Yes, that's what I would like. And I would like, included in those options are the change of the road to their entrance. I mean, right now, do we have any agreement with them that they're allowed to drive on our property to get to their property?
No, it's all verbal handshake from
Right,
20 years
right.
ago.
Right. So, I mean, we don't want to have to put our foot down, but if we had to, we could put our foot down and say, yeah, you're not going to use this road anymore. Right?
That's right.
Um,
We need an agreement on how this road is going to be maintained, so it's not a problem.
yep.
I agree with let's not kick this down the road any further. No more.
No more.
Calcium chloride's a short-term solution. It doesn't add to the health of the environment. So
I'd make a motion to instruct staff to research all the options that we see available, put a price tag on them if possible, and then let us look at that next month.
Second.
moved and seconded. We've discussed the heck out of it. Is there anything more to add to that?
No, I want to thank our visitor today for her presentation and her work on this, and encourage her to, gather up any other pictures that you think might be helpful as we go forward and show other people, the situation.
Thank you. I will be happy to do that. Thank you so much for your attention to this, all of you. I know you have a lot of much bigger fish to fry, but this is very important to us. So thank you so much. I appreciate every one of you.
Hey, Ari, quick question for you.
Yes.
Have you ever reached out to the Village of North Hudson by any chance about this topic?
Yeah, we did. We were told it's your deal, not theirs.
Oh, okay.
They said that's their road, we're out of it. And they said it nicely, but that was the response pretty much in a nutshell.
All right. Just wanted to know. So thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. And again, thanks for having me tonight. I so appreciate it. I'll be back with you next week or next month in case you have any other questions of me.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Ari. All right. And the next item discussion possible action on 17th Street and Coulee. Yeah, Coulee Road.
Yeah.
Yeah, so first of all, I apologize if you hear a screaming baby in the background. Of course, great timing for when I have to be talking. So a little bit of background on this. We've received some inquiries into the changing of the traffic control at the intersection of 17th and Coulee. Currently, the intersection is stop controlled on the 17th Street side and a free flow on Coulee. With the closure of Vine Street this summer for the reconstruction due to the Bella Rose development, we temporarily converted the intersection to all-way stop. It's kind of a good, test this out and see how it works kind of thing, and see if the pandemonium happens or if it's much better than people think. So we, as just hearing back from the police department and from just experience with looking at traffic out there, that seemed that the initial change to always stop, just people aren't used to having a stop sign there if you're driving on Coulee. Kind of the change of expectations was the hardest part, but then after people got used to it, then it seemed to function well. So that's good to know. Also in the past, there's been discussion, including in our current CIP, there's a line item for a signal to be installed at that intersection. Before we get to that point, though, we believe that we need to collect more information to see what is the best traffic control solution there, whether it is a signal or an always stop permanently or nothing or something else. We wanted to make sure we have all the information in order to make the right decision for that intersection. With that, we would like to reach out to SEH to collect traffic counts for that intersection in order to perform, a signal warrant analysis, and then you also use that information to look at other alternatives for the intersection. So the estimated cost for doing that work is about $1,100. We would have to figure out where that money would come from if we wanted to move forward with doing this. Funding for the signal, like I said, is in the CIP for fiscal year 2023. Not sure, because we're in budget time now, this item might remain or might be moved. Who knows at this point? So, yeah, staff would recommend moving forward with having the additional traffic data collected and come back to this committee to talk about more. I also will say that this item was on the agenda in a different form for the Public Safety Committee last week. I told them that we were discussing this at the Public Works Committee and told them kind of the same spiel I just gave you, and they were supportive of that kind of moving forward as well. So any questions, concerns, thoughts?
Dean, just a question on, would the study involve only 17th and Coulee, or would you look at 14th and Coulee, 13th and Coulee, as well as 17th and Coulee? Because they're all real close there. So if you're talking about signals or signs or something, you might want to consider more than just 17th maybe as the best location for that.
Yeah, that's a good point, Paul. When we reached out to our consultants to get that cost estimate, we were just assuming 17th and Coulee. So if we wanted to study additional intersections, that would, be an additional. You probably would, that $1,100 would be probably about what each intersection would be to count the traffic. We'd have to consider that as well. But if that's the direction we want to move forward with, we can certainly do that so long as we can find the funding to do so.
I think it makes sense to get the additional traffic data before we decide. I was actually a little surprised that there was CIP thoughts from a few years ago for a traffic signal there. That was before my time, but that surprised me. But I think it makes sense to go ahead and get the data first and then try to figure out, are we talking stop sign, are we talking some kind of other option? And I think it's relatively cheap to do that, So I would make a motion at this time to direct staff to, or direct SEH, sorry, to go ahead with that traffic study on 17th and Coulee.
Well, I guess for the record, I'd like to say that I was surprised. I didn't really think that we had a problem at that intersection. I use that intersection quite often. Maybe I'm just not there at the right times of day. I've never had a problem exiting 17th Street, either going to the right or left onto that road. So, I mean, I understand that there's a, CIP that the signal possibly coming there in a couple of years. I think for the flow of traffic, it's nice to have, minimal, if you're on the south side of the interstate, you're hitting a lot of signs, and it's nice to have a way to get from, 11th Street to Carmichael that doesn't have a lot of stop signs. So I don't know. I'll get behind the study, but personally, I'm kind of hopeful that it comes back that do nothing is the answer.
Well, we'll be objective evaluators. So,
yeah. Well, my pitch would be is I use that intersection many times since I'm on that thoroughfare. That is one of our north-south thoroughfares, and I use it many times, and it's frequently an issue. And at rush hour, quote unquote, it's much more of an issue. I try not to be there because it isn't wide enough to manage the traffic turning left and right. So at minimum, it would need a reconstruction just to create the number of lanes that we need to make that work. But the experience was very positive when we put the stop sign in. It just changed things a lot. in terms of, you're going to be able to get out, that things are going to work smoothly. People aren't going to push the sign on the southeast corner. The fact that it blocks vision is no longer an issue. So to me, there were a lot of positives to that, and I actually had two people make positive comments about that sign and wished that we would continue that, which is a record for my district. So yeah, but I think we need to do the study, but we'll see. I guess we'll see what it has to say. I'm not sure what, Dean, that's definitely in your ballpark about what it's going to tell us about what happens there.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep myself distant from from it, so I'm thinking about it in a objective mind too. So I don't want to prognosticate too much right now, not knowing all the information.
So with that, I'd be willing to second that motion. Paul, did you want to clarify if we want to just limit it to the 1100 and this one intersection? And as Jim mentioned, it is, the one that connects to Vine Street. To me, it makes more sense than troubling or having the added expense of looking at those other intersections that you mentioned, just because it does connect, all the way through to Vine.
Yeah, no, I think that does make sense. The thing I was thinking with 13th is EP Rock Elementary, which is a couple blocks up from that intersection. But I would say for now, let's just bite off, 17th and Coulee and just look at that specifically. And
Okay.
at the counts and try to figure out if that makes sense to have a permanent stop sign there. I think that's worth our time to do for sure.
Okay, so I'll second the motion.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we have the traffic study done for the 17th and Coulee traffic management. Any more discussion?
That would be contingent on a funding source for this year, Dean, Mike?
Yeah.
I'll add that.
So does that mean, Mike, in discussion, does that mean that you and Dean are responsible for that? You're going to figure out where it's going to come from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And you don't need any more help from us?
Not yet.
It may end up coming out of CIP monies. I gotta look at the operating budget and see if we can't squeeze something out of there. But if it does go out of CIP monies, then we'll have to bring it back for formal council approval.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item, discussion of Hagen Street Bridge expansion project.
I'll take this one. So this is on the agenda as a director from the Plan Commission meeting. It's the dreaded 11th Street Bridge, and we had applied for a grant last fall for an expansion project on that bridge to try to alleviate some of the traffic congestion there. Ultimately, we weren't able to obtain that grant, and so the problem still exists, right? And we all kind of know what happens there during rush hours, how it backs up onto Crestview. And so Planning Commission is looking for, recommendation or approval from both the Public Safety and the Public Works Committee to look at this bridge and this bottleneck and approve or recommend or approve, a complete fix of that bridge. So, that's not to say that we're going to do it anytime soon, but just so that both committees are on board that and say that there is a problem, and B, we're looking for a potential solution. So with that being said, what staff is recommending is, for the committee to answer any questions that you may have, but recommend a complete reconstruction of that facility, which would include, the necessary traffic turning movements, but also the inclusion of some pedestrian accommodations to allow for safe pedestrian access across the 11th Street Bridge, as that is kind of our main trail connection from the north side to the south side. And it's also included in the St. Croix County Bike and Ped Plan. But that's kind of what I would recommend moving forward from this committee. So.
Can you say that one more time? Mike?
Yeah.
I got distracted on my time. Can you just say the recommendation is for the study, or it's for the traffic piece, or what?
So we've already done the studies, some pretty extensive studies by SEH, and basically what it's showing is that there is a bottleneck problem at that site, right? And that basically we had two options to try to alleviate that. One was expanding the bridge. It would be to the east and adding a right-hand turn movement. Basically, the people that are going to Minnesota would take that right and go on the slip ramp off to Minnesota. And that was about a $1 million project for the expansion. Complete rebuild of that structure, which would include, all the necessary turning movements and the pedestrian accommodations, was estimated at like $2 to $2.5 million based on today's dollars. And so what the Planning Commission, what they want to do, or what they want these, our committee and Public Safety Committee to do is to make a recommendation, approve a recommendation to do one option or the other, and just looking at it from a longevity and overall, 30,000 foot level. What I would recommend is doing the complete reconstruct of that facility, which would include the bike trail for the pedestrian accommodations, as well as the turning movements for the traffic, and included in a future CIP. In the future CIP is kind of a vague, thing. It wouldn't be pinpointed to any certain year, but over the next 10 years, try to include it at some point in time to improve that structure.
So that's different than the packet, right? Because I was thinking the packet was talking about if you added that one lane to the east, it'd be like 650,000 to get that additional 12 feet. But what I hear you saying is you're thinking the whole reconstruct, which is the 2.2 million?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that study was done, a few years ago. So in today's, it has inflated a little bit, which gets us closer to that $800 to $1 million for that one lane expansion. Yeah.
Okay.
My concern with that approach is that as we think about exit 2 reconstruction, that is going to put a tremendous load on that bridge. And so from a timing standpoint, we really need to be thinking and moving on this for 2025 or whenever that's going to happen.
Yeah, you're right, Jim. I mean, if you think about it, when exit 2 gets reconfigured, all that traffic is going to be pushed to that facility, and we need to have it improved prior to that happening, because if we don't, I don't know what we would do.
Yeah, if I could chime in too, last time we talked to Westcott about it, they were thinking the exit 2 stuff was going to be like 2032 or something like that. Not to say that that's exactly the day it's happen. Maybe we can put some pressure on them to do it sooner, but whatever. Just for what it's worth, that's what they're thinking right now. And secondly, this could be something that we talk with them about too, because they're ultimately responsible for the bridge, if I remember correctly. And it's SEH was thinking that the bridge is only going to last like 20 more years or something before it need to be replaced anyway. So the combination of the exit 2 stuff and the condition of the bridge we might have some pull with Westcott to get that bridge replaced, potentially with their cooperation. We'll see what happens with it, but hopefully that would be the case. Wouldn't just be us footing the bill for it, maybe.
That was going to be my question, Dean, too, because the state owns that bridge, right? This is not even our bridge. So we would be making a reconstruct or a huge investment in a bridge that is owned by the state. Like, I'm not sure how that works with Westcott, if they would be also partnering in that financially, or it's their bridge, right? So we would be doing upgrades to their bridge essentially.
Yeah, so the state has their bridges inspected every year. They do an annual bridge inspection program, and this bridge, it comes back as being in very good condition according to their ratings. So they're not looking, like Dean said, they're not looking at touching this for another 20 to 25 years. And so if we want to make that improvement, and we go to the state and say, hey, this is your bridge, we're having these problems. Well, they'll come back and they'll say that our traffic analysis is saying that it isn't an issue, and that you're only having problems for 15 minutes each part of the day, and they'll basically push the buck and say, if you want to make any improvements, we'll sign off on it, but it's going to be the city footing the bill until that bridge actually is in deteriorating condition where the state is forced to replace it.
And Dean, you're thinking that's 20 years off, or what are you thinking in terms of when the state would actually get involved with if it was deteriorating enough?
Yeah, it's probably about 20 years away. I think SEH had in their memo that it was about 20 years out, and I think the eyeball test looks like that's probably about right, given the condition of the bridge. It is, it is aging. You can see on the girders the paint's chipping off, and it's looking a little worn out a little bit, but the mechanics, the structure of it, at least for what you can see, looks like it's going to hold up for a little while longer anyway. So it's not like it's about to collapse, that kind of thing that the state would be rushing in to do it in the next few years. But it also isn't, that far away, I wouldn't think. Because I believe the bridge was built in the 70s, if I remember correctly. And, that's, 60 plus years has elapsed since that bridge was built. And bridges, at least at that era, or designed for probably about a 75-year time frame. So that would be about 15 years from now, and then the state's probably behind on their stuff, so that's kind of where the 20 to 25 years comes in. So that's probably about accurate, I would think.
So the sufficiency rating was 86.2, and that would have been 3 years ago. And I don't think they think about replacing bridges until it gets down to, is it below 50? But I mean, it's an arbitrary number, but it's about, like Dean said, about 20, 25 years before they would even consider replacing it.
I guess my thought is, if we're talking a couple big ticket items tonight, between a new public works facility or like redoing the bridge, I would say let's go for the new public works facility as a bigger need, because the longer we wait on the bridge, the more financial help we could get from the state. So it's kind of to our advantage, I think, to wait actually on the bridge, even though it doesn't solve the traffic buildup problem. And then Jim's point too about 94 rebuild, I think we have to keep those lanes open. If we did a total reconstruct, that could be really difficult. So I would say maybe right now, wait and see a little bit on the bridge, just because we know in the end, the state is probably going to get involved at some point financially to help us. Now, I don't know if we can wait 20 years, but what I'm trying to say is I think the urgency I would rather see is the public works facility. I don't know if that makes sense, Mike.
I guess I would have to agree with Paul. The amount of money we're going to save by investing in a public works facility is significant. I don't want to ever think that it's not. Just the efficiencies and the what we're going to gain. And I don't think 20% is far-fetched from that discussion we had with Cedar Corp. So I would prioritize the public works facility over this one. And when it is time to do this one, I think we need to, chances are good I won't be around here when we finally improve the final design, but I think we do need to look to doing it once and doing it right and doing the full, paying for the price to do it right. That's my feeling.
So are you for a motion tonight, Mike, or what?
Well, I mean, if given the option, would the committee, throw out when we're going to do it, but does the committee lean towards, a complete reconstruct of the facility or just expanding the facility? Which way would you lean if and when, this bridge gets rehabbed?
Well, as I just mentioned, I would personally go for the full.
Okay. I think that's what Jim and Paul, you were kind of alluding to as well.
Yeah.
I think either. Sorry, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, at least my thinking has been that the addition of one lane was the way to go, because that's at a price point that we could manage quickly. And I'm thinking that we need to have this bridge ready to handle more traffic before we close exit 2. So that's kind of been the process I've used. So now you've kind of thrown me a curveball.
Sorry.
The total replacement would be the better way to go, and I would need some more discussion, I guess, on the pros and cons of those two options. Then we're going to have to go. I think we absolutely have to go to council with this and say, here's our decision. Here's our recommendation, and first of all, to get buy-in that we're priorities. We have these two large projects. Where what are our priorities going to be, and how does it fit in timing?
Okay. All right. So I guess with hearing that, I don't need a formal motion or anything tonight, but maybe, between Dean and I, we can come up with, like you said, the pros and cons of each, whether it's the expansion or the complete rebuild, and we can bring it back to a future Public Works Committee meeting for discussion, and then we can bring it forward to council at a future council date. So if that's fine with the committee, that's what we'll do.
Yeah.
And I think, Jim, I'm more in your camp. I think I was thinking the single lane too, but I was basing it off the $650,000 in the packet. And it sounds like that number's changed significantly. But the other thought I have is, I think we want to keep that bridge open for use if we did the extra lane. Like, Dean, would that be possible for some through traffic? Just because that's such a major artery, I'd hate to see the entire thing shut down and rebuilt, because I think that would be really difficult for the town everyone to go around Carmichael.
Yeah, you're talking about exit 2 then, when that work happens?
Well, no, I'm just talking about the Hagen Street Bridge, that if we added a lane while they're doing the construction, I'm hoping that the bridge could remain open for, maybe there's a northbound and southbound lane. I think I would hesitate to reconstruct the whole thing and lose whatever time that is, because I think that's a major artery for the city.
Yeah, I think that work, I'm not a structural engineer, but I would think that work could get done with the bridge remaining open, just because it's off to the side, essentially. You would probably maybe be down a turn lane or something like that while the work was happening, just because you have space to work and stuff. But I don't see how you would have to close the whole thing down to do that, just the widening off to the side.
Does that give you what you need, Mike, for tonight?
Yeah, that's fine. Got pretty dark down there in Florida, Paul.
I'm an hour ahead of you folks. I'm getting tired.
Right.
Okay. I spend more time looking up the agenda than answer.
I think it's the street sign policy, Jim.
Okay. Street sign policy. Who's got this one? Is this yours, Dean?
I don't know. It's kind of a joint effort on this one. So. I know Mike fields a lot of requests for street signs of various kinds, and I know that they've also street signs of various kinds requests have been going to Public Safety Committee as well. So We kind of are of the mind that we would like to get a policy down for, whenever somebody comes in for a street sign, or even if it's not a street sign, like a problem that could be addressed by a street sign, or something like that, to get a policy in place so that when something like this comes in, here's how we're going to do it, here's who it goes to, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not just public safety is looking at this one and public works is looking at that one, and people don't know what the other one's talking about and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of where we're at, and Mike can maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but that's kind of, I think, where we wanted to be.
No, that's exactly right, Dean, because we currently have a stop and yield sign policy that we utilize for those requests. But just we've been getting a lot of requests, whether it's deer crossings, whether it's speed limits, whether it's you name it. And like Dean said, some are going to our committee, others are going to public safety, and then people are when they call in or email, where is it going to go? So, and ultimately what happens is the money for the sign, the post, the installation, all that time is coming out of the public works budget. So, I just want to have something down where, like Dean said, when the request comes in, this is the process. I like for everybody's eyes to touch these requests, because, the more people that can have input on it, the better. Obviously, some of the situations that we run into is you have one or two people that want to sign at a certain location, and you got 10 that don't, and we put up the signs, and then a week later we're taking them down, and I just don't want. We have enough stuff to do. I don't need to be having the guys put up and take down signs every other week. So, with that being said, we're just looking for formal approval from the committee to move forward, to have staff move forward and write a policy that would be presented to both Public Works Committee and Public Safety, and then ultimately council approval.
Yeah, and the one thing I would add too, Mike, is that if you have anything in particular that we should make sure to put in right away, that kind of thing. If you could think of anything tonight, it's just helpful, as much information up front as you think.
Well, my thought on that, my thought was just that, is there like an application they fill out, or do they just call and say, hey, I want this? So I think there needs to be I think there needs to be a piece of paper, I think they have to apply at City Hall to be like, this is the sign I want, here's where I want it, here's why I want it, etc. And then I think that staff could, review that and then refer them to either Public Works or Public Safety, whatever you guys, think's the best place for it, or maybe both. And then it eventually would go to council. But I also think there should be some traffic data, depending on where it is or what it is. There maybe should be some traffic data that goes into that too, but not necessarily at every single one, right? But I just think there needs to be a more formal something you have to fill out to request this. And maybe you need a couple citizens to do it. Maybe it's so it's not just one person, right? Maybe it's 3 or 4 people from your neighborhood who are experiencing the same thing and are interested, so it gets the neighborhood to talk a little bit about it. But those would just be my initial thoughts on trying to draft a policy. But I totally agree that I think the policy would be helpful for you guys to really guide you. And I think I would say, yeah, go ahead and for sure try to work on a policy.
And I would see part of it as a sequence is to public safety or public works looking at this first or second. As I look at the public safety agenda and I say, boy, that looks like things that we're either talking about the same thing before or after. We need to be coordinating that.
Where do you think it should go first, Jen?
Pardon?
Where do you think it should go first, to Public Works or Public Safety?
I think it's probably dependent on on what it is. It's probably, most of them are probably a safety issue. Would be my thinking, is that they're all about safety.
And I mean, does the Public Works Committee want to review sign requests? I mean, I guess that's a question I'll put out there too. I mean, is that your place to do that? Have you done that in the past?
Well, I think, Michael, you had said that you like having more eyes on things, the better when it comes to things like this, so that, so I think it makes sense to go to both. And I would maybe start at Public Safety, and then, since it's our budget, bring it to the next Public Works meeting. before it goes to council. That would make sense to me. And I like all of Paul's suggestions for, things to include in the actual policy. I think that was a good step in the right direction. But I think I would defer to you guys which committee it should go to first and which one next, but I think it should stay consistent.
Okay. Yeah, public safety can approve it, and then it comes to public works, and we say, nope, no money, sorry.
Well,
no, it's fine. So we'll draft something up and bring it back to a future committee meeting for discussion. And based upon your comments, we'll bring it to public safety and hopefully get everybody on board with everybody on the same page. So, like Jim said, we're not duplicating, and that there is a formal process for these requests. Because it seems like this year, I don't know, we've just been getting more and more and more as the season's gone on.
A lot. If you need anything, formal action from us?
I don't know. No, we got the direction. We know what we need to do.
Okay. Next item, update regarding pavement and infrastructure management plan and transportation utility fee.
All right, I'm going to share my screen to go through this here.
Dean, you got 15 minutes.
Yeah.
While you're doing that,
do my best.
Because then we got 10 minutes on retaining wall and get everybody out of here by 7.
All right.
I'm going to get my plug-in in here before that. The new speed limit on Carmichael, 25 mile an hour. I adhere to the speed limits, but that one is tough, really tough. The sign is not very. It's such a change that no one is going 25 miles an hour. I mean, at 35, I'm getting pushed. So I would suggest that we need to put a flashing light. Usually when you put a sign like that in, there's flags or something like that, just all of a sudden it just popped up. There it was, 25 miles an hour. And I was shocked, and I knew it was going to happen. So I can't imagine the rest of the people who use that road. 25 mile an hour road dropping to 25. We need to do something, need to think about something there, because it is not working.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Cool. So I just want to run through some updates from the pavement infrastructure management plan and how it relates to the transportation utility fee. So like Mike said, I'm hoping to go quick. If you have any questions, maybe let's wait till the end to talk about them, just so I can get through everything in a reasonable time. So we're going to talk about, summarizing what we talked about at the July meeting, give some examples of each base rating, because it would be useful to know what we're talking about. And then update on information that we've processed since the July meeting, and then how it relates to the transportation utility fee. So some of the things that we were tasked with after the July meeting was to look into acceptable pace rating standards. We talked about maybe a difference between major streets and minor streets. Talked about modifying what we had assumed as a 15-year reconstruction plan to a 30-year horizon instead, which lowers the annual cost, but extends things out further and ends up being a longer total, or a bigger total cost later. And then even out the peaks and valleys in the spending amounts as much as possible. So just to recap, in 2019, our average pacer rating was 5.25. I broke that out a little further for major streets, like the Carmichael roads, the Crafty drives, the Hanley roads, that kind of thing, was 5.75. And then the pacer rating for the other streets was 5.08. So close to 6 and close to 5. You can see the distribution of the pacer condition ratings is pretty much like a bell curve, with being right around 5 as the average rating. So I want to go through some examples of what we talk when we talk about a 10 versus a 1. What are we talking about here? So 10, starting good, is essentially a freshly paved new road. So examples of that being Mayor Road and Hillcrest Drive, and then the Carmichael Ridge development. We actually don't really have any 9s out there right now, so I'm just going to skip to 8. 8, you're starting to look at, the pavement's still in good condition. There's some cracks here and there. You can start seeing the surface of the asphalt showing a little bit more rock than it used to, but still in good condition. 7 being essentially a seal-coated road, or starting to see a little bit more surface deterioration, such as NOLA Drive or Burrell Curve. 6, and this is close to the average street, the major street rating. So Canyon Drive or West Canyon Drive, those are examples. You start seeing more cracks. They're in like kind of a block shape, the big blocks, so they're not like squiggly cracks all over the place, but every 10, 20 feet or something like that, pretty consistently, and they're all sealed and it's still good. The surface is starting to get a little more rough. You can see that. Close to a 5, which is what our average minor street rating is. You're starting to see their seal coat wearing out, more cracks that are on the road. 4 being we're starting to get a lot more of the alligator type cracks. Spruce Drive is a good example of that, where there's a lot of them off to the side, but the main drag through lanes are still in pretty good condition. Stage line out by Heritage Greens is a good example of a 4 as well. 3, you're starting to get potholes. You're having to do a lot more patching of the roads. So Walnut Street downtown is a good example of a 3. Hazel Court is probably a 3 that's getting closer to a 2. You got a lot of pop outs and it's being held together with flex patching. 2 is their example, River Ridge Road, Walnut Street up the hill a little bit. You're starting to see a lot more surface deterioration, alligator cracking, that kind of thing. And 1's being where the road pavement has essentially failed. You're starting to see it blowing up essentially, and you're kind of biding time until you can reconstruct it essentially. So since the July meeting, we, like I said, modified the plan to 30-year horizon instead of 15, even out the peaks and valleys. Estimated what this will do for PACE ratings in the future. So what will each plan, what will the outcome of each plan be? And then also broke out the water and sanitary sewer costs from the other costs to make sure that what we're considering for our public works costs are broken out. So this is a table I showed at the July meeting. You can see that, starting in 2022, you got, like $14 million of improvements going on, and then it kind of peaks and valleys kind of thing going through there. So extending it out, and I wanted to kind of keep a consistent number, but adjust for inflation. So that's kind of, as you see, each year gets progressively a little bit more, except for 2025. The reason for 2025 is that it includes the Carmichael Road reconstruction north of 94 and south of Riverview Drive. So those things are probably projects that we look for grant funding to construct. Probably wouldn't do it without it. So just keep that in mind, and then the year of that can change depending on when we get the funding. So just want to let you know that that's why it's a big number in 2025. Special assessments are estimated using our current policy. These change, obviously, if we change the policy. So I just want to throw that out there. I also wanted to get an idea of what the number is for our current bill, essentially, our overdue bill for maintenance and reconstruction, and just putting all the numbers together. This $115 million number is a lot, and that includes water and sewer costs as well. But for the whole community and everything, I just wanted to give some of the gravity of where we're at. That's the number we're kind of looking at to try to rectify over time. Obviously, that doesn't correct itself in a year or even a decade, but wanted to make sure I gave you the entire, rip the Band-Aid off a little bit with that number. So we can't spend $230,000 a year to think that we're going to get anywhere close to rectifying $115 million of needs. So
if we had a big pot of money, we could spend $115 million next year and all of our roads would be up to a 10. Is that what you're saying with that number?
No, it's not up to a 10. It's just whatever maintenance it currently is due for. So in a lot of cases it is a reconstruct, and in a lot of cases it's a seal coat, and other cases it's a mill and overlay. So, you know, that kind of thing, just whatever it's due for. So it's not
all full reconstruct. So
everything. It's you know, realism.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So,
realism, 115 million. All right.
I know it's a crazy number, but I just wanted to let you know that's what we're looking at.
I think
The proposed plan, again, this table is kind of the proposed plan. So what that does, first 5 years would be bringing major streets and historic area streets up to acceptable pace ratings, beginning reconstruction of streets in the downtown area, reconstructing streets that have undersized sanitary sewer mains, according to the sanitary sewer plan. Next 5 years would focus on bringing more of the minor streets up to acceptable pace ratings, continue the reconstructions as needed for the sanitary sewer work, and then continue reconstructions in the downtown area, and beginning some reconstruction of EP Rock. The next decade would be continuing reconstructions in the historic area and EP Rock area, and then maintaining all streets at accessible ratings, and then finish reconstructions in those areas in the next decade after that. And then also the old industrial park area would be due at that point in time too. So I wanted to also kind of give an idea of what each of these plans, like what would that do to the pacer ratings in the future. So I had to make some assumptions based on information that we have from people who look at this stuff all the time. I'm gonna throw this chart in here. The red line you see is kind of what asphalt pavement does if you don't maintain it. That's kind of the lifespan of asphalt pavement. So if you go from 100%, which is, you know, a 10, if you didn't do anything to it, how long would it take to get down to a 0 where it's impassable without doing any maintenance? And it's about 25 to 30 years or so. And then you can see that the blue line is if you made maintenance activities to extend the life of the pavement, what you could do to get that pavement life extended. So with the proposed management plan, you can kind of see the lines here as to what the pacer ratings would do in the future. The orange line being the major streets, the gray line being the minor streets, and the blue dotted line being the aggregate of all the streets together. So with the proposed plan, by 2030, you're talking about all streets would be kind of in that 7 to 8, or the average of the streets would be in the 7 to 8 range, which is kind of what we think is an adequate rating. Just a little bit of breakdown in 2025 with that plan. You can kind of see, comparing to the bell curve we have now, we're shifting a lot of the streets to the right by milling and overlaying them, reconstructing them, seal coating them, that kind of thing. But we will still have streets in that 1 to 2 to 3 range, which is not great. Then by the time we get to 2030, you know, we shifted the curve to the right, and then that allows us to be more in maintenance mode rather than reconstruction mode. So with the proposed plan, 2030, this is kind of what your average street would look like in a pretty good shape. So looking at these numbers a little bit more, I kind of wanted to say, like, if $8 million in 2022 is not palatable, like what would some portion of that look like? What could we do with some other numbers? So what if we did $2 million in 2022 and adjusted for inflation? So what that would do is it would keep most of our major streets at acceptable pacer ratings and do only reconstruction that's needed for sanitary sewer upsizing. All other streets and alleys would have minimal maintenance, essentially no major projects done on them. What that you can see that does is keep the major streets at, you know, about a 6, which is reasonable. The rest of the streets by 2030 would be down at a 2, and that's an average rating, so that's obviously not good. 2025, you can see about a quarter of our streets would be down at a 1 condition, and by 2030, it's almost 2/3 of our streets would be down there. So that's obviously not a good sign. So So the major streets would look like this, and the minor streets would start looking more like this, and that's not good to keep up. So maybe 2 million isn't a great number. What about 4 million? What that would do is like keep the major streets at acceptable ratings and maintain the next tier of through streets at acceptable ratings. So like 7th Street, Spruce Drive, West Canyon, do reconstructions as needed. All the other streets have minimal maintenance. So again, the major streets would be kept up well. The minor streets would be better, but not great. You can see by 2025, about a quarter of the streets would be at a 1. You know, there's lots of 2s and 3s, and then by the time you get to 2030, about approaching half the streets in town would be in that bad shape. So I was going to skip through this because you know what those look like. So what about $6 million? So that would keep all major and minor through streets at acceptable ratings. Do reconstruction as needed for a sanitary sewer upsizing, and reconstruct some additional blocks per year. It's about a 50-year reconstruction plan instead. Cul-de-sacs and alleys would have minimal maintenance. And that keeps the major streets up at about a 7. Minor streets would get up to about a 6, which is better. To show you by 2030, though, you still have a sizable amount of the lowest tier streets in bad shape, but a lot more of the through streets would be in good shape. And then one more option I looked at, what about a graduated plan? So kind of what I call a 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 plan. 2 million in 22, bump up to 4 to 6 to 8 to 10 million by 26, and then adjust for inflation beyond that. So what that does is all major and minor through streets brought up to acceptable pace ratings by 2030. The cul-de-sacs, alleys, and other minor streets would be up to acceptable ratings by 35. Do reconstructions as needed for upsizing, and then once everything is kind of our triage mode, then start the reconstruct program in the late 2020s and continue to the end of the horizon there. The maintenance of all streets maintained after being brought up to ratings. So what that does for the pacer ratings, the major streets are up at 7, 8, something like that, and the minor streets approach up to between 6 and 7. So it's a little bit less, but still in a better shape than what they would be otherwise. Then you get by 2030 you have significantly less streets down at this 1 and a lot more in good rating. So you give me 1 second, I'm going to turn on my light so I'm not in the dark here. Okay. Sorry, that's much better. So in order to fund this, we've been talking about transportation utility fees. So we have had a discussion about that in the past. So from the August meeting, setting the rate about $5 a month, equivalent for single family residential, would equal about $1.7 million per year if you extrapolate that to all the properties in town in the same trip generation rates and stuff. Looking at the league guidance for this type of fee, they say that currently tax exempt properties should be charged the fee to avoid it looking like a tax instead of a fee. And they also converted the cost to a per trip basis so that you can kind of see like what amount of money would need to be collected, say, from a commercial property to pay for this fee. So what would the per trip charge be to meet the needs of the proposed management plan? With the tax exempt properties charged, it would be about 8.5 cents per one-way trip, 17 cents per round trip. That equates to a little less than $25 a month for a single family residential. And there's a breakdown of what types of properties would be paying what amount essentially for that that fee amount. You can kind of see this industrial being pretty low, and that's because industrial properties don't generate a lot of trips in general, but they do generate a lot of truck trips, which damage roads more than cars. So An alternative would be to charge truck traffic more than car traffic. And the reasoning behind that is that a fully loaded semi-truck is about the same equivalent as 9,600 cars on the same stretch of road per FHWA. So that's something to think about. So if you assumed, make some assumptions and assume truck rate, you could reduce the amount that the amount would be charged to like residential or commercial properties, and instead put that on industrial properties to account for the truck damage to the road. So we need to collect a lot more data to do that. I'm not sure if League of Wisconsin Municipalities would agree that that's allowed, but I just wanted to throw it out there as something that we could consider looking at if we pursued this further. So I want to put out some additional thoughts. So the question can come up, how can we reduce project costs while still getting stuff done? A few ideas would be to hire in-house staff to design and inspect construction projects. That could reduce project costs by up to 5%. So that's significant, obviously. Also reduce or the amount of kind of ancillary work for some of these projects, like curb replacements, doing mill and overlays, that kind of thing. How could we reduce the burden on property owners? Just some ideas: increase property values and taxes collected without increasing city infrastructure. Examples of that would be filling in vacant and underused properties, allow more dense uses, reduce or eliminate parking minimums to allow more stuff without adding roads to our system. Reduce the size of roads where we can, and think about future obligations of widening, installing traffic signals, et cetera, as we consider them. Make sure future development pays for itself through financial analyses to make sure they generate enough property tax to meet our future obligations. And then attempt to shift more travel to non-motorized transportation because it's cheaper to build. Obviously, there's health benefits to non-motorized transportation as well. But it also will reduce the need for additional travel lanes on streets, which impacts the bottom line. So next steps, any questions, comments, concerns in regards to the plan? Additional data I think we need to collect. Do we need to consider any other alternatives? And what's the next step with council or this committee or what's next? So I know it's a lot of information I just threw at you. I'm interested in hearing what you think, or if you have any other questions to talk about.
Wow. I think that's really interesting. I think particularly the 2468 shows what you can do. There's investing in a little bit different way, looking at a little different way. As I was looking at that, I was thinking, I just saw something. I bought something, and it had 3 levels of warranty, and for this level, you get these features. And I was kind of thinking something in that same order might be a graphical way of presenting that information. For $2 million a year, here's what we get for 4 or 5 categories that you had there. So, but that's we might need that nutshell when we start looking at it with the council. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, I don't know. We have to talk to Aaron about how we could do this, but this is a workshop task to me, because we're talking about spending some big bucks over committing the city to a pretty big program for a long time. We need it, but how we do that and make sure everybody's bought in and aware, and we cover all the issues and concerns. Mm-hmm. But I'm feeling more and more comfortable with the data that we've got here. At 115,000 is a choker, but
yeah.
But it's a real reality check, and if we looked at that versus what we project to spend currently,
right,
over that same time period,
Yeah, like you said, Jim, I think, out of this meeting tonight, I think what I would recommend, and Dean, you can chime in too, but I think we need to have a conversation with Aaron how to best approach this with the council. I mean, obviously, they need to see this sooner rather than later, just so they understand, the needs, not only now, but into the future over the next 20, 30 years. If anything else, just so they're aware that, like you said, 250,000 in maintenance every year isn't, I mean, we're just falling further and further behind, and basically, we're almost in a hole now where we can't dig out of it. But I think, like I said, I think we have a conversation with Aaron just to get his thoughts on how to present this to council to get some level of support. Now, obviously, we're not all going to jump on board, or they're not all going to jump on board right from the get-go and support $8 million worth of improvements starting in 2022. But at least we can say, this is a situation that we're in, and here are some options to try and get us out of it. So.
I guess, Dean, I want to thank you for your work. I think it's a lot of data that you've summarized for us, and I appreciate that. I know you put a lot of hours into that, so it's helpful. I wish the picture looked better, but I find it very depressing. You could put $8 or $6 million in, and still you see that graph sliding to the left. That's really, really difficult. What I'm thinking is, and it's kind of actually overwhelming for me to see the whole over the next 50, 30 years, whatever you were talking about. I'm thinking more practically, how do we just start raising the bar from the 250,000 to, $1 million level or $2 million level over the next few years, just to get us going on this. Is probably where we're gonna have to start. And I know that's probably not what you want to hear, because you want those, graphs going to the right, or at least maintaining, and under your analysis, they're not, right? Under that kind of idea. But I think that would be the starting point. We all know we need to do more, but I think the price tag is really, really steep. So I think it's going to be very difficult to kind of get out of that hole that Mike's talking about and you're talking about. But I'm fully supportive of increasing for sure. The other thought I have is I would like a little bit of information about these churches and nonprofits. I don't know what the impact of that fee would be on our local churches and nonprofits. I'm guessing the nonprofits probably less because they have less trips, but I think churches could probably be owing a lot of money on this, depending on, how many services they have or whatnot. So I guess I would like to look at that piece, because that piece concerns me a little bit, just knowing that churches don't often have a lot of budget room to work with to begin with. So that's just a thought, I guess, more than a request to keep that in our mind. But I just think the bulk of the work you did is fantastic, but I feel completely challenged with the numbers. I'm not sure how to do that, if that's going to be possible.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll second that piece on the.
Oh, I think we might have lost Jim.
Uh-oh.
Well, I assume he's going to be coming back. Well, I guess I'd add to Paul's comments. I too had jotted down a note about, the tax exempt versus nonprofits, and finding out what that, how many are we talking about? You probably already have that. Do you, Dean?
Yeah. So the tax exempt, what I called institutional, would be, some examples would be the churches, like you're talking about, the school district, the county, and any other, institutional uses. I guess I'm drawing a blank of what others would be, but I think maybe even the Y, kind of is in that category, that kind of stuff. So I can certainly get some other information and send it out maybe separately, just kind of what the burden would maybe be on some of those example things, if that would help.
So, I know this is not a new problem, and I share the, kind of sadness at the number of 115 million to kind of get us up to pace, current. But I do remember conversations, listening to past city councils. I mean, I think we knew that we were heading in this direction. Sadly, we've underfunded this for a very long time. So, while, I know we can't afford to, go too fast, too quickly, or, too high, too quickly with our new budgets, but I will be personally, for making the investment to get more, to get our roads more maintenance and more money. We clearly have been underfunding it for a very long time. So,
yeah, thank you. And that's one reason I wanted to look at that 2468 plan in particular, to ease into it maybe a little bit more. Because, and considering COVID and everything too, that kind of throws a wrench into into plans as well, because people don't have as much discretionary income or spending as they otherwise would have, so it's even harder sell to make right now. But yeah, so
the other thought, Dean, I had is that we have a lot of these, what they call the TIF districts or the TID districts that the city has, right? And at some point, those are going to be closed out. Mm-hmm. At some point in the future, the city's going to have a lot of extra cash on hand from these, when these close out. But we're not talking about the next, 2 years. We're talking about 15 years or something like that, or 13 years or 17 years. But there should be a kind of a cash crop, so to speak, down the road. And I think if the city, if you have a plan, basically what I'm trying to say, there could be real potential funding to help with some of that down the road. So that's just an optimistic piece to think about.
Sure. Thanks.
So I just got off the phone with Jim, and he's struggling to get back on. So he just recommended that we finish our conversation on this item and then table the retaining wall policy to November and then adjourn. So that's what he's recommending. He's, like I said, for some reason his iPad is locked up and his computer's not working right. So,
Dean, does that give you guys enough to go on to maybe take it back to Aaron and try to figure out how to approach or?
Yeah. I will say too that Aaron reached out today, even without knowing that this was on our agenda tonight, just kind of with concerns about, he's thinking COVID related more than anything, I think, and concerned about the timing of rolling this out and that kind of thing. So, I think this combined with that, I think our next step is probably meeting with Aaron and seeing maybe what our next game plan steps would be. I don't know that taking it to council, anytime soon and maybe be the right timing on it, but we should probably bring it up not too distant in the future either. And maybe what Jim was saying with the workshop might be a good idea to kind of hash out all this stuff too. So I don't know what you guys think about that kind of next steps, plan of attack.
Yeah, I'd encourage you just to have that conversation with Aaron and kind of get his thoughts on timing, approach, workshop. Ask him all those questions and kind of see what he's thinking.
Okay.
I would agree.
Sounds good.
I don't think we need any formal motion on that item. But we'll, like I said, we'll reach out to Aaron and have a discussion with him and the best approach. So with that,
I'll move to adjourn.
Do we need to table the next issue before we adjourn? Or, I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah, you probably should as a form. Yeah.
So,
Right.
and go ahead, Sarah. Sorry.
So I'll move to table the discussion on retaining walls till our next meeting.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There you go. All right, now Sarah.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
Perfect. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for the time tonight. I appreciate it. It's a long meeting, but
Yeah,
thank
long
you.
meeting.
Thank you.
All right, take care, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Dean.